Okay, class, today we're going to be doing radicals. Now, when you're looking at this N5-5 sheet, you're going to see that at the top, they're just reviewing. So I'm just going to work one of each of these, even though you should know how to do these. So remember when you do the top, I told you to do your mental math. So I know I'm going to end up with x squared, and I know I'm going to have to add my -4 and my +8 to get a +4x, and I know I'm going to have to multiply the two in order to get a -32. That confuses you, that's fine. You can do the box method or you can FOIL it. So I know on number 4 that I want to factor that. Now that's another one in which you can use your mental math or you can use the SPT method that I showed you. So I know that in order to get x squared, I'm going to have an x and an x. So to get 24, I need something to multiply to give me 24, but to add to give me 11. So if I think of all my factors, I know that I have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 6 and 4, and 8 and 3. So I know that 8 and 3 will give me an 11. So I know that I'm going to use an 8 and 3. And because I need that last number to be positive and that first number to be negative, I know that they're both going to be negative. So that's just a quick review there. So now let's get to what we're actually working on this sheet, which is radicals. So when I look at radicals, I see a 56. Well, if you remember before when we broke down the numbers, I showed you how to do the prime factorizations. We're going to do the same with these numbers. So I'm going to take this 56 and I'm going to do my prime factor tree. So I know that that is divisible by 2. So if I divide it by 2, I know 2 would go into that 28 times. 2 is prime, so I'm going to circle it. So I know 2 will go into 28 14 times. That's prime, so I'm going to circle it. 2 will go into there 7 times. And they're both prime, so I'm going to circle it. So I know that essentially what I have is the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 7. So guys, let's have a conversation about this square root. Because this is the square root, you know that there's a little 2 here. Understand that that 2 means you have to have 2 of them to bring it out. So I have 2 of the 2's. So 2 times 2, which is 4, which is why the square root of 4 is 2. So that means I can bring my 2 out. But these don't have a pair. So I can't bring my 2 or my 7 out. So I'm going to be left with 14 up under there. So this is the simplification of this. And that's as far as you take it. And the calculator won't tell you that. So this is something you're going to have to do by hand. So based upon that, let's do the next one. So I know now that I have 324. So I'm always going to start, because you always start with your smallest prime number and then work your way up. So I know that I'm going to start with 2. So I know 2 will go into 3 1 time, and then it'll go into 12 6 times, and then it'll go into 4 2 times. That's prime, so I'm going to circle it. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to have 2, and then I'm going to have an 81, and then I'm going to have a 9, and a 9, which in actuality gives me a 3 and a 3. And I could have went straight to the 3 and a 3. So now all these are prime, so I'm done. So what this actually looks like is 2 squared plus, I'm sorry, I didn't mean plus, 2 squared times 3 to the 4. So when I put that under the radical, understand that I have a 2 and a 2, a 3, a 3, a 3, a 3. So remember we said that you got to have 2 pairs to take it out. So I got 2 pair of 2s, so a 2 can come out. I got 2 pair of 3s, so a 3 can come out. I got another 2 pair of 3s, so another 3 can come out. So when I bring them out and I multiply them, I'm going to get 3 times 3, which is 9 times 2, which is 18. So my answer to that is 18. So the square root of 324 is actually 18. Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, so I know that I can do the same thing for my 98. I know I can start with 2, and I'm going to end up, 2 will go into 9 4 times. I'm left with 1, which is 18, and 2 will go into 18 9 times. So I know that the only thing that's going to give me 49 is the 7 and the 7. So now all three of those are prime. Excuse me. So I know that I really have the square root of 2 times 7 times 7. So because I have the two 7s, the 7 can come out, and I'm left with 7 the square root of 2. So now I'm going to do the same thing to number 11. So on number 11, I know I got a 5 on the outside, but I can deal with that at the end. So first I need to deal with this 300. So I know that if I take 2 into 300, it'll go 150 times. So if I take 2 into 150, it's going to go 75. Well, I know 2 can't go into 75, but I know 3 can. So if I take 3 into there, I'm going to get 25 times. And then I'm going to get a 5 and a 5. So now I have all my prime numbers. So I know in essence that I really have a 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 5. So I need to look at what I have 2 of. I have 2 2s, so my 2 can come out. I have 2 5s, so my 5 can come out. And my 3 has to stay under. So I know that gives me a 2 times 5 is 10. So that's really 10 square root of 3. But don't forget, what did I have hanging around on the outside? I got to take that 5 into account. So when I take the 5 into account, I'm going to have 50 square root of 3. That's right, it's Xavier. I did have a 5 hanging. Okay, now let's look at number 12. So I know on number 12, now they're telling me to solve this, but they want me to use the square root method. So let's talk about the square root method. The square root method means you're going to take the square root of both sides. Because I know the opposite of add is subtract, the opposite of divide is multiply, and the opposite of square is square root. So I know in essence this really says x squared equals 49. So because of that, I can take the square root of both sides. And when I do that, I'm going to get x equals 7 is what most of you thought. But think about it. I know 7 times 7 is 49, but I also know that negative 7 times negative 7 is 49. So my solution here would be a negative 7 and a positive 7. So now I'm going to do the same thing for number 13. So on number 13, and when I take my 27 over, I'm going to have 3x squared equals 27. I'm going to solve this like normal, so you know first thing I got to do is divide both sides by 3. Well, when I do that, I get x squared equals 9. And when I take the square root of both, I'm going to get x equals plus or minus 3. So now we're going to take a look at number 14 and 15, which look a little bit different. So when looking at 14, because it doesn't look like a perfect square. So when looking at 14, I still can say that I know that I'm going to get x squared equals 48, right? And then I'm going to take the square root of both. But when I take the square root of 48, it kind of looks like it looked on the other side because it's not a perfect square. So I'm going to have to do the same thing I did. I'm going to have to take 48 and break it down. So that's really 2 times 24. That's really 2 times 12. 2 times 6. And then 2 times 3. So I know that my square root of 48 is really 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. So because I have a pair of 2's and another pair of 2's, I can bring 2 2's out, which is 4. So I'm going to have 4 square root of 3. So let's talk about how we're going to write that 4 square root of 3. Because I know that the answer is 4 square root of 3, I also know that it's going to be x equals plus or minus 4 square root of 3. You don't stop your plus or minus, because remember that the negative numbers times that negative number is still going to give you that positive value. So I want you to take a minute and do number 15. So if you have to pause the video, go ahead and do so. Okay, if that wasn't enough time, just pause your video again. So I know that the first thing I got to do is take my 60 over. When I take my 60 over, I'm going to end up with 10x squared equals 80. So I know I got to divide both sides by 10. And then I'm going to end up with x squared equals 8. Well, I know that 8 is just 2 times 2 times 2. So that's 3 2's under there. So I know 1 2 has to come out, and I'm left with 1 2 under there. So I know that that's really going to be x squared equals plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Only means it's not x squared no more because I took the square root. So let me take my little 2 off. And there you go. Okay, guys, so I want you to work the first 5 problems associated with this on the next page, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Have a good day.